When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Introducing Slapjack, T-Bar, and Mace. They are known as Retribution. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind to Raw. I am J-Rock, joined by Ting-Bar. We are review a Retribution, and it was rotten. How are you?
I don't know how I feel after that show.
Sometimes I don't know where we're going to come at different shows, but I am going to... This is going to be one of those shows where if you are one of those listeners that at the end of it get upset with sheer negativity, this is not the show for you. I appreciate the download. I appreciate if you've ever listened to this show. This is not the one for you. This might have been the worst Raw of the year, and I thought this was a terrible 3-hour show. That is my opening statement about Raw tonight. So you make the choice, but there's not going to be a lot of positivity in this review. But maybe Wai had a very different approach to Raw. I doubt it, but maybe.
Well, we shall find out. I don't know how long this review is going to be because I was probably pretty speechless for most of this viewing, I have to say.
Did you know there's a pay-per-view on Sunday? They could not have done a better job of making me want to do anything but watch this show on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you wanted to, we can bail on it. Because I don't know how many people would really care.
Well, we will find out. How was your weekend, Wai?
It was okay. I mean, really, it just consisted of the G1 and staying at home pretty much the entire weekend. I did mention this on Rewind to SmackDown for our patrons and for people who, I guess, on the free feed who didn't hear it. So in Toronto and in Ontario, we have this thing called the COVID Alert app, which basically tells you if over the past 14 days, somebody that you've been in the vicinity of, I think it's like something like 6 to 10 feet around, if they ended up testing positive for COVID-19, they receive a code and they would enter it in their app, and it would alert basically everybody that they've been in contact with for more than 15 minutes in between 6 to 10 feet, I think, over the past 14 days. I unfortunately got one of these alerts, and so got tested on Friday, and then got my results today, and I'm negative, thank goodness. More like I was honestly not that concerned for myself. It's more so all the people that I would have to tell afterwards. You know, it's that whole thing. So I pretty much just spent the entire weekend at home, just waiting for the results, doing the G1, of course. And then, got the message today.
Well, I was one of the people that Wai had seen during this time, so I was not too concerned. But the thing was, last week, you would come over on, what was it, the Saturday?
Saturday, I think so, yeah.
The next day, like, I was just exhausted. And I just kind of, like, chucked it off to, like, just being tired. But it persisted throughout the week to the point that on the Tuesday or Wednesday, my wife was starting to say, like, you seem much more tired than normal. Maybe you should go get tested. And I was like, I could just be tired. I had no other symptoms than that. And I just decided, I think I'm just overtired. And then you alerted me to this on Friday. And at that point, I said, okay, I should definitely get tested because I was already thinking about it this week. And I should definitely do this at this point. So I went on the Friday as well. And I got my result. I did, Wai. I went on Friday and got tested. And
wow.
Unlike you, I was not given the throat swab. I got the Hurt Locker. I got the stick up my nose, which was, well, until tonight, the most painful thing I had to endure.
I think that's your Retribution name, Q-tip. That's what we call it.
Q-tip, yes, with 2 P's. The most uncomfortable 15 seconds you're going to undergo. But nonetheless, it was more so just the long wait. I had a 2.5 hour wait outside until getting into this, which I was told was actually faster than most lines. Had I come earlier in the day, they told me you were looking at a 4-hour wait outside. So anyway, I got my result back. I was negative as well. So Wai and I are we are COVID free, thankfully.
COVID free, ready to take on the entire wrestling world and everything that it has to offer. And that, of course, includes it during this time, the G1. Of course, it's such a weird transition, John, talking about like Ishii and Suzuki to this edition of Raw we're about to talk about. But I mean, such is the very colorful, varied world of wrestling, isn't it?
Can you imagine Minoru Suzuki just wanting to check that off his list of, hey, I fought in Pancrase, I was involved in like so many companies, but never WWE. Why did I go do 2 years in WWE? Could you imagine?
I think they would make him Chopstick in Retribution.
Do you think he would have been the shark that ate Tozawa tonight?
Oh, could be that too. Yeah. I think everybody like needs a Retribution name now. That's going to be the new thing.
Oh, the name generator has to be created this week. The Retribution name generator.
Yes.
All of that to come. But I do want to thank all the people that have signed up for the Post Wrestling Cafe. We've had a surge, so to speak. The only good surge you can have during a pandemic, and that is new members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. So welcome to all of our new listeners on the cafe. We are 2 shows deep and many more to go. Coming up this week, we will have G1 shows Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Sunday being a show that Wai and Mike Murray will tackle. It's a loaded A-block show. But we have lots of shows on the site this week. We don't have to go through all of them, but Wai, any highlights you want to point to?
Oh, this week? Well, G1 coverage picks up again with an A-block show starting on Wednesday. Of course, that is all for cafe patrons. But even before that, tomorrow, John and I are back with an edition of Ask Away, exclusively on the Post Wrestling Cafe, where we answer all of your questions. And I believe it's a very, very deep bag. So we'll get to all that sometime tomorrow afternoon. G1 shows again, like I mentioned, Wednesday and Thursday. Rewind to SmackDown on Friday. So basically, five if you include Sunday's G1 show. 5 Post Wrestling Cafe exclusives this week.
Woo, man, a loaded week at the Post Wrestling Cafe. Also this week, the debut of Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure that will drop Thursday. And they are going to be chatting WrestleMania 19 on this show from 2003 with their guest, Nate Milton. So look out for that on Thursday. Saturday night, we have a UFC 253 post show with myself and Phil. We'll be going live on YouTube right after the main event. And then Sunday night, if we make it, Clash of Champions post show. Wai and I will be live for our double Ice Cap and Espresso members of the cafe. The perfect way to cap off the week with Clash of Champions.
It really is the main event. But, you know, as we mentioned that, I believe Braden and Davey, or at least the Up Next YouTube, will definitely be, I would imagine, doing a live watch along. So watch them at youtube.com/upnext. And also on their feed this week, along with their edition of Up Next on Wednesday, I'm sure they'll have plenty of other stuff. I'm trying to look at, like, I don't
our schedule this week is intense.
Yeah.
You can go get the whole schedule up on the website. I have it posted there where you can follow along. Lots of shows. It is mega overdrive with G1 season in full effect. So there will be some days with multiple shows coming out. Hopefully everyone can keep up. But if not, that's why you've got that's why you can go back and listen. Listen whenever you choose. Pick and choose. There's no mandate to listen to all of them. Although it is proven that if you listen to all of our shows, you are, in fact, a better person.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
That's proven.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just a little bit of what is coming up this week. And let's move on to some news items. We're going to start off with some WWE news. This coming courtesy of a report from Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful Select, who reported on Monday night about several positive COVID tests in NXT that happened 2 weeks ago. This would have been coming out of their last set of NXT tapings that I guess caused them to have to be, as Fightful described it, very conservative when it came to planning out a lot. They are set to do tapings this Wednesday, and from what I understood, like, they will have testing on Tuesday, and then hopefully they will be able to be at as close to full strength as possible for Wednesday. But obviously that's pending everyone testing and being okay. We don't know any names specific other than, several classes at the PC had been canceled as a result of this. And John Elba over at Spectrum Sports added that according to multiple sources, there was a COVID-19 outbreak within NXT recently. He goes on to say sources indicated that some have gotten relaxed with mask wearing, especially in spots where some people congregate, and there was concern over that. I am told that people were still testing positive as recently as this weekend, with the belief being a coach accidentally spread it. And I mean, if that was the case of people testing positive, those people would not be figured into tapings so quickly, I would imagine, unless they somehow passed a test that quickly.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's really hard to know from the outside looking in, and it's honestly one of those things that they've really. Some of them will be obvious depending on what absences I think don't seem planned from last week, but others we may really not find out, and I don't expect any sort of public announcement unless some of these performers were to do it themselves. Which I mean, given like sort of maybe.
I think the precedent has been set that they do not want that to happen.
Especially if you're still like, on the lower tier or like even a developmental talent, you're definitely keeping your mouth shut.
Well, yes, and hopefully a mask on it.
Ooh, yes.
Anyway, so we will continue to monitor that. But yeah, I wouldn't expect, unless they were in such a position that they had to respond, that WWE is going to be offering up any discussion on that, or we will see. Maybe they would address it if necessary, but that is ahead of Wednesday. CMLL is also, they're preparing for their anniversary card on Friday, which to me, this feels like such a, for the annual anniversary show, that's, the big card of the year for this company, this being their 87th anniversary special on Friday. They've been hit with 2 positive COVID-19 cases to Princessa Suhei, who will not be on the show, as well as Yuvia. So both were set to challenge for women's titles on the show. Yuvia was set to take on La Metalica. So she is off the card. And I guess there's been some concern because her boyfriend, reportedly, Ultimo Guerrero, he is still listed on this card. So I guess that is going to be something of concern if she has tested positive. But so CMLL hit with at least 2 known COVID-19 cases, but moving ahead with this show on Friday night. Friday Night SmackDown.
This is going to be a regular segment, I feel.
Oh, the COVID update? Yeah, I feel it's almost been kind of quiet. Like, you have to wonder, how many of these COVID cases have not, an AJ Styles. Yep. Would anyone have known about that if he had not disclosed it? Like the number that seems to be the most consistent one out there for that outbreak a couple of months back in WWE was pegged at 38 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is mind-blowing to me that they went as long as they did until they introduced testing.
No, it's honestly, I don't think there's any defense for it.
Especially as late as they went. We're talking it wasn't until June that they were testing.
Mm-hmm.
So SmackDown kind of came back down to earth on Friday after last week's number that was their highest since April. They were down 12.5% this week, still over 2 million, 2,037,000 viewers on Fox, dropping to a 0.5 in the 18 to 49 demo. They were going up against a big NBA playoff game that almost did 5 million viewers. There was also a lot of news coverage with the breaking news of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing that evening. So I think you could look at both of those as maybe having some kind of effect on SmackDown. But conversely, in Canada, I'll have to pull it up here to get their number. But first of all, just being downweight, do you look at this more so the competition or anything specific you look at with WWE? Because they've been riding a pretty good wave on SmackDown of late, but this is their lowest since introducing the Thunderdome.
I imagine it would be a bit of everything. Maybe the Thunderdome at this point has kind of worn off its novelty. I think the Roman Reigns storyline is still incredibly hot. Where you had Sasha Banks and Bayley presence on the show, those two things to me would suggest like, a maintained creative, at least, I don't know, interest in what's been going on thus far that might have lifted ratings in the past. So I imagine it would be a combination of competition and maybe people just getting a little bit tired of, or at least not feeling the urgency with this particular episode.
In Canada, SmackDown did 223,700 viewers. It was the fifth most watched sports broadcast in Canada on Friday. There was a doubleheader of Jays games with the Philadelphia Phillies. Those were the top two, followed by the NBA game between the Nuggets and the Lakers and Blue Jays Central. So SmackDown finished fifth. Also, main event that followed them did 80,000 viewers and finished in the top 10 of sports broadcasts in Canada. So those are their numbers in Canada. And AEW announced on Monday the signing of Serena Deeb. So, I mean, AEW continues to be in signing mode. Does it surprise you just the number of signings that they have been announcing of late?
Yes and no, but not so much in the women's division. Certainly it is the most criticized aspect of their promotion, and I think they definitely need more talent who are veterans, who have demonstrated an ability to just, wrestle at a high enough level or comfortable enough on TV to be able to do it. She had a very good showing, of course, with Thunder Rosa a few weeks ago, and I imagine she would bring a lot backstage as well with her prior role at the Performance Center. So, I also do wonder like what terms of some of these deals are, whether or not like, are these like full-time contracts or are they like per date exclusives? Like how much is known about these AEW contracts?
I mean, the thing about AEW contracts is that there's different provisions for different performers. Like we know, like Joey Janela, for instance, like he's clearly allowed to do outside in the independent dates for Game Changer. I don't know like the specific language that some are able to work into their deals, but it sounds like when you're signing a contract, it means like you are part of the roster. It's not just but I don't know if it would just be per date or you're just being paid a salary. We move on. Big news from Dragon Gateway. And that was Masato Yoshino staving off retirement by winning the steel cage match. And the real, there were 10,000 stipulations attached to this. But the biggest of all, Yamato did not have to straighten his hair.
Why didn't you lead with that?
I am questioning it right now. It was Big R Shimizu that made it to the end and lost. And therefore, no more Big R Shimizu. He will now be wrestling under his real name of Ryotsu Shimizu. And that, along with several other stipulations that were ending up going forward. But the big one here, I think that's the fact that, first of all, Masato Yoshino avoids retirement, but also Yamato's curly locks are still a thing in Dragon Gate.
I'm so completely lost about everything you had just said.
I think we should maybe do a live watch along of this match.
So how many people were in the match? And really
6.
And everybody had a stipulation attached to it?
Oh yeah. There were like multiples for some. Like Yoshino. Okay, for instance, if Yoshino had lost, okay, he would have had to shave his head before having his retirement match right afterwards, a farewell match with Naruki Doi, who had wrestled earlier in the night. So like we'd have to have a head.
He would have had to retire
immediately after this cage match. He would have had to have his farewell match with Naruki Doi with his head shaved.
That's very specific.
I mean, there's, shame the man into retirement as well with the loss of his hair. Yeah, this also featured Ada, Kai, Yamato, BB Hulk, and then Shimizu and Yoshino. So this is Dragon Gate's annual big 6-way steel cage match with flags, stipulations, order of eliminations. I mean, this had all the prime principles you need for a big stipulation match.
I thought this edition of Raw would be the craziest thing I'd be talking about.
Maybe not. Coming up this week, just looking ahead to the big shows, which are AEW. We've got two Dynamites coming up over the next 2 nights. Are you aware of this way?
Yes, I am. Yes.
We've got.
I mean, really, 1.5.
Kind of 1.5. You're right. 3 hours of Dynamite. Tuesdays show, which is probably going to be super late because the NBA game doesn't start till 9. And then once the game ends, they're doing Inside the NBA. And then AEW will start. So we're probably looking at like 12:30, 1 a.m. This thing is going to start on TNT and TSN here in Canada. But they've got Scorpio Sky and Ben Carter, Brandy Rhodes and Anna Jay, and Matt Sydal against Sean Spears with Jericho on commentary. I guess it's an experiment to see what kind of the NBA audience that will stick around for this. I am not too bullish on this one being like people staying up this late and sticking around for this particular episode of Dynamite. That I would say even like if you're a hardcore fan, you'll watch this. But I could see a lot of people looking at this lineup and they'll catch the highlights the next day or watch it the next day. But I just don't know what you can expect where you can't even promote a time and it's going to be a really late start.
It really does feel like an edition of Dark that they're placing in this time slot. I'm actually a little disappointed they wouldn't use that exposure in order to perhaps at least put one more notable match in there with one of your more notable stars, perhaps one of the elite in there. But I guess they have to save a lot for the Wednesday too.
Yeah, Wednesday we've got Jon Moxley, Will Hobbs, and Darby Allin against Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks. Brody Lee against Orange Cassidy for the TNT title. Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa against Ivelisse and Diamante. And Jericho appearing.
Yeah.
And last thing here on the NXT front is they've announced all of the participants for the Gauntlet Eliminator. Bronson Reed, Kyle O'Reilly, Kushida, Cameron Grimes, and Timothy Thatcher. Winner takes on Finn Balor at TakeOver.
Yeah, it looks pretty stacked, honestly. I like
you get Kyle O'Reilly and Kushida together, potentially.
For sure, yeah. I like the way they rolled it out, actually, over the past week. You know, every day they announced a new name or one or two new names. And I think progressively they just kind of, you know, made for what looks like a really good match. So I'm excited to see Timothy Thatcher. I'm excited to see Kyle O'Reilly and Kushida in there. Do you have a prediction?
I mean, you have to look at this of the grouping here of who could headline a TakeOver. I would assume Bronson Reed would be the clear favorite among people. Though, selfishly, I would love a Finn Balor, Kyle O'Reilly match.
I wouldn't really, if you want to tell that story, you can. It would be an opportunity like this. The
Finn Balor and Kushida have a history that you could, to me, like these network specials, you can take a lot more risks with who you're putting onto these shows as opposed to like drawing on pay-per-view. To be honest, like Bronson Reed is obviously the most pushed of these 5, but you could have some fresh matches here. And for Kyle O'Reilly, I mean, we've talked about what is the future of the Undisputed Era. Like Kyle O'Reilly, assuming that leadership role, I think would be a great direction for him. I think he could pull it off and be a contrast to Adam Cole. And yeah, I think you have some options here, but this should be a really entertaining match on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got the women's battle royal to set up the female title challenger for TakeOver, and then Tommaso Ciampa against Jake Atlas. Those are our matches for Wednesday night. All of your news can be found up at postwrestling.com. Is there anything else, Way, you wanted to discuss before we get to Raw? Anything? This is kind of like your last chance before we dive into the deep end.
You know, let's get it over with. Stick the swab in my nose.
Let's just go. Raw, everybody, from the Amway Center, the Thunderdome. Were they ready for tonight's show? Tom Phillips was, because he was back. After 2 weeks gone, he was there with Byron Saxton, but no Samoa Joe. Instead, we had Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. We had no explanation from Tom Phillips. He just disappeared for 2 weeks, but now he's back. And Retribution enter the ring. And we have breaking news to start the show, Way. Retribution have signed WWE contracts. That seems to be like the most immediately. This was record time. This was 20 seconds into the show that I'm completely confused. This would appear to be the antithesis of what this group would want and what WWE would want, and would continue to be, pardon the pun, the bane of Retribution's existence is making money off of this company that they are clearly doing now. So this was a record.
So they've only signed, I would assume, these, 5? They wouldn't have signed it. Oh, wait, I thought they were all like Performance Center people. what's going on?
Those contracts did not exist.
Okay.
Maybe they got main roster deals.
I think that's what they mean. There was certainly a whole lot of story told in between the two episodes that we were not aware of at all. It really felt like we had missed like multiple chapters going from last week's edition of Raw right into this. But
dude, they didn't even build up the drama of revealing half these people. They just went ahead and just showed them for us tonight. Like, there was no even build up to this. They just came out, and it was like Mia Yim was barely masked.
The assumption I get is that they feel like these aren't recognizable names anyway, and a reveal of seeing a woman with blue hair is not going to mean anything in their opinion to the average fan.
Mia Yim says that the fighting continues and that the superstars are motivated by money.
By the way, they're all wearing some form of a mask. As John had alluded to, Dijak T-Bar, he's now got paint all over his eyes, like 2 red streaks across his eyes, and he's wearing a Bane mask, and he's talking like Bane. Mia Yim has like, some sort of like, really what looks like a face mask with a hole cut in the mouth. Same with Mercedes Martinez. What is it? Slapjack has this hockey mask, and Dio Madden has like another thing. So listen, at the beginning,
are the worst Halloween costumes.
Hey, at the beginning of this whole thing, like, we were kind of joking that, oh man, they're doing Antifa. It's this thing. You could tell, maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but come on, guys coming out here all wearing masks. If this doesn't tell you all you need to know about what they're supposed to be representing, I thought this plainly spelt it to me.
I'm not disagreeing. I think that this is so. I just think like it's such a cartoon group, like more so than you would expect, even from like a WWE style of presentation. Like, this to me is so beyond anything you could take seriously. Like, it really does feel way campier than even the Dark Order did.
Absolutely. Oh my!
Significantly
Dude, look at the names, man.
Oh, like the worst names you could come up with that instantly just scream mid card. Yeah,
it
just
screams to me like
Ninja
Turtles villain is what it screamed to me. But I do feel like we're at some point, like I might just shift my mentality and start watching this like I'm watching, like a BTE sketch. Like, that's ultimately, I think, how somebody might be able to enjoy this, is to not really take it as a serious type of invasion whatsoever, and just look at this as like sort of like a misfit, comedic, cartoonish group of like terrorists.
Every single one of you is part of the sickness that is responsible for the infestation of this hellhole. You collect your paydays like whores. These guys have just signed contracts. The ink is barely dry on these deals for guaranteed downsides and merchandise percentages.
Yeah, they have. Well, we don't know
and
for how
trademark
much.
Names.
Well, maybe they're not making anything. Maybe they're low. They can't be offering them that much.
This makes absolutely no sense that they have signed from their perspective or from WWE's. And I know that, yes, we can have the who was it that signed them to these deals that can be revealed as their leader from within. But for their perspective, this just to me this required a lot more thought. And it was just, to me, you just zip through anything. And I hazard to even lament this fact, because that would be assuming that this thing was not dead on arrival weeks ago.
Well, the idea is that they are Performance Center performers or NXT performers who feel like they've been overlooked by people that, on the main roster. They've not been called up for whatever reason. They forcefully, basically...
Wait, we just saw Mia Yim on TV 2 weeks ago. Like, she was on the USA Network.
Roster. Oh, that's the problem. NXT is not the main roster. And she's not Mia Yim.
She doesn't have a name yet.
She's going to be something else. She's going to be like Like Mamma Mia or something.
Oh, dear. The Hurt Business walkout are baby faces for the night, and Retribution retreats. MVP says they're not so tough without weapons and calls them hoes and thought they would stop complaining after getting their contracts. They're wrong. So maybe this is their commentary that even when you get what you want, you're still upset.
Yeah, sure.
They are going to get beat down. Then the extra Retribution members show up. They did not have a contract status update. And the Hurt Business attacks them. And it ends with a double chokeslam by, I wrote down here, Dijakovic and Madden. But I guess this was T-Bar and Mace chokeslamming BL to the floor or on the canvas. The highlight of this segment was Lance Storm on Twitter. They fired my ass, but signed 20 people who were destroying equipment and actively sabotaging the show. I'd have thrown a Molotov cocktail had they asked.
I think Lance Storm would be a great member of Retribution.
Oh, my God.
He should have been Slapjack.
Oh, man. Slapshot for
Slapshot. Right.
The Canadian. Tilt. The true thrill seeker.
Yeah.
Lance T. Storm. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, no, like the other confusing thing about this entire episode is just what's going on with the Hurt Business. They are being portrayed as the opposition to Retribution, the one thing keeping the WWE from completely collapsing. And they are still, though, taking part in their regular storylines against Apollo Crews and Ricochet, where they're all wrestling as total heels. So this constant back and forth of them starting off the show as babyfaces, then being heels for their storylines with Apollo and Ricochet, then finishing the show again as the biggest babyfaces on the show is completely confusing.
I don't want to hear anybody give me their shades of gray bullshit after watching this show with the Hurt Business. This hurt something. It was my head, not so much business, though I think it might have an impact on business. Philip says, for the first of a million times, that after signing their contracts, Retribution are now free to do anything they want whenever they want. Is that how contracts work? Hey, we've signed you. Have at it. Here's our office.
Wrestling
Take
contracts,
a crowbar.
Wrestling contracts, I think, are have a great leeway, a lot of room for creativity, as you just discussed in that Dragon Gate match, John. So I wouldn't doubt that they had probably that exact phrasing. You can do whatever you want.
Nothing says we are under attack than by our latest signings that we are now allowing in-house, that we are going to pay to wreak havoc on our locker room.
Well, okay, listen, if you're WWE, if you're Adam Pearce, okay, what do you want? Like, to constantly be on your toes or negotiating?
Probably wants a night off. This guy's on Raw and SmackDown every week. You know how much of a pain that's got to be?
Well, there's not that much travel. No travel, really.
Gotta go through all this testing? No, thank you. Schreiber is with Rey and his family, who have just got a season's pass here to Amway Center. And they're going to go watch Dominic go for his first championship tonight because he's in a number one contenders match with his longtime friend and partner, his blood brother, Humberto Carrillo, teaming for the first time tonight. Rey says, it's incredible to watch this as a father. My son now getting part of nonsensical matches, just like I am. So this is the ultimate, what a tag match. Dominic and Humberto Carrillo in their debut match together against Seth Rollins and Murphy, against Way's Tag Team of the Year, Andrade and Angel Garza. And we've got the Street Profits on commentary, who actually I did not mind on commentary, as opposed to times in the past.
So we've got two teams that we all thought just broke up, and a team that has never teamed together before, competing for a tag title opportunity.
Exactly. This is just like that gauntlet they did in AEW to set up the tag title challengers.
It's amazing.
Carrillo hit a suicide dive. Dominic hit a high cross as the Street Profits were cheering. Garza is thrown into Dominic, who is sent to the floor. This was so debilitating, we wouldn't see Dominic and Carrillo for the rest of the match. Murphy hits a V-trigger to Andrade, and then Murphy crawls to his corner, and Seth Rollins hops off the apron and leaves because he has a lot on his mind. We had just talked about the fact that Chris Jericho is done with this feud with Orange Cassidy. He is perceived as a main eventer. And what is this main eventer going to set his sights on? He wants the tag team titles. For Seth Rollins, he could not even care about winning these tag titles. This guy just wandered off, leaving Murphy for dead, and we got the wing clipper, and Murphy was pinned in 525, meaning that Andrade and Angel Garza, who showed no problems this week, are once again taking on the Street Profits. I swear to Christ, this match has been booked for your amusement way.
I have negative interest to see this pairing again. I would like...
What was the point of last week? What was the point of that angle?
Clearly, they're in the middle of some sort of breakup.
That's what we said in July when they were feuding.
So when they were supposed to culminate in it, and when they were actually supposed to break up, I imagine what is probably something that they've debated and perhaps changed several times. So you've had several false starts of this feud that already has completely, like, I think, completely, I don't know, made its audience completely disinterested. And now doing it again at the pay-per-view, this could be the launching off point. But I can tell you, even if it is going into the match, it's not something I imagine anybody really looking forward to. And I'm probably including their own families. Like, their families are probably tired of watching this pairing.
Shane McMahon is with Jordan. He's got a big fight tonight, Braun Strowman against Dabba-Kato, and he's going on the KO show to promote it. Because Shane knows you promote matches in advance. Jordan offers to come with him if he needs backup, but he says, no, it's okay. Just watch the door. I've got some surprises. This guy Jordan's going to snap one day.
On Shane?
This guy's got a very boring job. Stand here and watch the door. Retribution are standing in formation backstage, ready for their WWE-produced promo. The Hurt Business could have been part of the solution, but they bent the knee and are now part of the problem. You line your pockets with WWE's money to pay for your suits, whereas we now line our pockets to pay for this goddamn grade 5 starter kit face paint and name generators. Our payment won't come in the form of money. Yes, it will, but with a match with you tonight. And you will pay in retribution. Holy Christ. So yes, we've got identities revealed, names, and their first match all tonight. I'm not saying this would have been a big deal, but we've had like 6 weeks of these attacks, and we're getting their first in-ring appearance together as a unit on an hour and a half, 2 hours notice.
I mean, maybe the contracts, maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe they actually aren't getting paid, and they're only getting paid in matches. I mean, maybe they're communists.
Okay. That could be a form of payment.
Yeah.
The Kevin Owens show. Owens said how him and Shane tried to kill each other for 2 years. They had a hell in a cell. I got you fired, but you're back. It's just water under the bridge now. And he tells Shane to promote away.
They definitely tried to build up some form of unspoken dislike for one another, trying to respect their, months long feuds that they've had. And this was it. Yeah. They even mentioned, hey, I got you fired, but now you're back.
Yep.
No explanation whatsoever.
Pretty much just laughed off the stipulation that we did last year. So
yeah.
Shane promotes Strowman and Dabba-Kato, and they bring out Dabba-Kato. And Owens talks about his fight with Aleister Black 2 weeks ago and Dabba-Kato getting into his face. And Owens said that one day we are going to do this. And he slaps Dabba-Kato, and Shane has to hold him back. When Braun Strowman comes out, they scream at each other. Shane is holding Braun and Dabba-Kato away from one another. When Aleister Black appears, grabs Owens and breaks his balls against the post repeatedly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Shane is just standing there basically calling it. He doesn't really care to stop it.
No. This was just Kevin Owens, the official, I don't know what this did to him. I guess he's going to have something else wrapped up after Aleister Black has his eye wrapped up. Charlie found Drew McIntyre. One subtlety I enjoyed on the show was the level of frustration and annoyance displayed by Drew McIntyre with Charlie throughout the evening. This man did not want to talk to her, and she wanted multiple interviews with him. She asks about his fractured jaw if he's worried about it. He says, yes. Are you worried about your fractured friendship with Keith Lee? He knows Keith wants to be champion. One day they're going to laugh about this over drinks, but now they're going to go beat the hell out of each other. And those drinks are going to be on him.
I thought this was actually a good appearance from Drew. One of the only good things thus far.
This was 45 seconds. So keep that ratio in mind. Retribution attacked a bunch of geeks backstage, including Titus O'Neil and Humberto Carrillo. And T-Bar, again, called them part of the sickness. They are the judges, jury, and executioners. It should be a conflict of interest, but that is the roles that they hold.
See, so I'm just trying to think, somebody, I guess, came up with this Retribution storyline. They needed some sort of leader and chose Dijak for the role. And I think Dijak is actually a very good choice. He's got the height. I think he can play this sort of over-the-top, supervillain. Really, literally, he's playing Bane. He can play that type of character. You can debate whether or not it might actually be more interesting than if he had just come up from NXT as Dijakovic. Because I don't know. I don't know how Dijakovic would have been portrayed on the main roster. This is a complete overhaul for him. Is this a better... Oh, man, I can't even ask. I can't even seriously ask the question.
Where do you think T-Bar is going to be in 6 months?
Playing T-ball.
I could see this guy heading out into the water and being eaten by a shark.
24/7 division for sure for a lot of these guys. No, I mean, he's tall. Maybe a spot on the underground.
My advice for these guys would be, let's not be so ambitious about being unmasked. I think you want to be hidden as long as possible so that when the inevitable rebranding is necessary, it will be more of a seamless one than if your identities are exposed and you are tied to T-Bar, Mace, and poor Slapjack wearing his goddamn hockey mask.
Who is Slapjack?
Slapjack is Shane Thorne.
He looked way shorter than Shane Thorne.
It's supposed to be Shane Thorne. So, anyway, Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee was next, and Phillips tried to explain how this works for Sunday's match. If Keith Lee wins and Randy Orton is not cleared, then Keith Lee will get the match with Drew on Sunday, which will be an ambulance match and their third match in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Lee runs at Drew and sends him to the floor, chops him, and hits him with Grizzly Magnum on the floor, which is where he lifts his hands and smashes them on the chest of Drew McIntyre. Drew then dumps Lee onto the desk. They go through the break. Lee seems conflicted as he nails the man in the jaw, and then the Spirit Bomb gets countered with a Rana, and then a spinebuster by Drew for a 2 count. He's clutching his jaw. We get a shot of the ambulance, which is, quote, symbolic of what will happen this Sunday. Lee hits Drew with a big lariat, then Drew avoids the Spirit Bomb, comes back with the Claymore, but before he can pin him, Orton shows up with the chair shot for our first of many disqualifications on this show. 11 minutes, 46 seconds. Orton beats Drew with a chair and then punt kicks Keith Lee, presumably into the hospital.
Yes. So, I mean, honestly, did we expect anything different than a non-finish here?
No. We did not.
I think, it is, of course, infuriating. I mean, it'd be acceptable to me a bit more if it was their way of building to a 3-way. But it's not even that. They just don't want to beat either guy, yet they still want to continue to promote them in a match together every week on TV.
Yeah. Where is Keith Lee at this point, a month into the main roster run? Where do you see...
It's been really weird. I don't know why. So they had him beat Randy Orton at Payback. And they, use that as a way to catapult him in the top end of the mix, and they've kept him there by these very disappointing, non-finishes with him on TV. Meanwhile, trying to use that to build to Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. So they've kept his face in there in the top mix, which is, I think, their intent. But how excited am I to see future matches with them? They've greatly diminished that, I would say, over the past month.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, like, you did do something really cool with him beating Randy Orton in the fashion you did, but that feels like that was only a couple of weeks ago, and it feels like a total afterthought. And I don't know, it just seems like you've run this combination of these three into the ground in record time, and I don't know, like, was this match, did it do a lot for you? It kind of just felt like this was, you had no faith in a finish. So yeah. I don't know how invested you get into when you're going 12 minutes and you know that they're not beating either guy. And I think that's a larger problem than people give credit to. The fact that there is no faith in finishes, and tonight was like a grand example of that style of booking. Up
and down this card, like, everything is a bait and switch. The one thing that they did deliver something finish on is
Raw Underground.
Braun Strowman versus Dabba-Kato. Yes. So, I mean, that I thought was an overall positive for Braun Strowman. But, I mean, outside of that, Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre has been a bait and switch match that they've tried several weeks, several instances of it now. This week, I had zero anticipation for it whatsoever. By the time you might actually announce it on the pay-per-view, I'm not really going to care either.
No. McIntyre and Orton feels it has cooled off significantly from their last pay-per-view to now. From SummerSlam to here.
The whole story that they've tried telling this month of, like, the teases of either Drew or Randy being injured and no one, like, one or the other not being able to make it to the pay-per-view, I don't think one person watching would have came close to believing in any of that stuff. It seemed like it was just done as a way to inject Keith Lee into this feud as a potential replacement. That's, like, my theory. But in the end, it just ends up being, like, a really unfocused and, like, I don't know, hard to believe in program over the past several weeks.
They aired a SmackDown promo. The big thing this week they're pushing is whether Otis will forfeit the Money in the Bank contract or not, and the final build-up for Roman Reigns and Jey Uso.
Mm-hmm.
Orton cuts a promo after the break. Shame on all of you people for doubting him to make it to Clash. He has been a constant in this locker room for 20 years. He walks over to the ambulance. He took a ride in this ambulance several weeks ago. Are you aware that WWE is, much like they went crazy with that Shark Tank or the Shark Cage a couple of years ago, that they're marketing an ambulance now as part of their toy series?
Okay. Was not aware.
It's the WWE Slambulance.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, there's a tie in there. He took a ride in this 3 weeks ago after Drew McIntyre hit him with not one, not two, not three. Well, actually, shit. He gave me 3 Claymore kicks. The best. They did catch. It looked like shit was the word dropped here. The best. This is one of the best parts of Raw, with Randy Orton just realizing on live television that he screwed up the math. Well, shit, it was 3. It was a lot. He goes over the people he's put in the hospital, and he remembered what he's capable of. And the point of all this is that this ambulance represents pain, agony, even death. But to him, it represents his 14th world title, and he will make sure Drew takes another ride in one, and his title reign flatlines.
Aside from the little, screw up, I thought it was a good go-home promo for Orton.
Schreiber is with Asuka, and Billy Kay interrupt. This was where, like, my head's unraveling during this segment. Schreiber is speaking with Asuka. Billy Kay interrupts and says, Asuka's just giving away title shots. Maybe Sarah can get a title shot. Maybe Jen from catering. Then Peyton Royce walks in and says, maybe I can get a title shot. And Sarah Schreiber asks a question on everyone's mind. Are you two still friends? And Kay explains, we can still support each other even though we can't team any longer. And they set up a match with Asuka and Peyton Royce for later tonight, where we would get Peyton Royce with Billie Kay in her corner. I have no idea why these two have broken up, where they're now back together, but they can't team together.
I have no clue. I mean, that too seemed really mistimed. All the breakups, it just seemed like they were really, really like breakup crazy over the past month without any real idea of like when they wanted to complete the breakups or where to go afterwards. You have it with Angel and Andrade. You certainly have it again here with Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, who this felt no different, honestly, from a typical iconic singles match. I would anticipate that these two would be fully split up after the draft, but I still have no idea why they did this with so much time to go before that.
Yeah, we just forgot it, but maybe the head kick that Billie Kay took on Raw Underground was so significant that she forgot it. She had amnesia and forgot that Peyton Royce caused that.
I'll take one of those.
Zelina Vega versus Mickie James. Mickie said she fought Asuka with everything and never gave up last week, and she'll never give up going for the Raw Women's title. And Mickie did an interview with Alex McCarthy at TalkSport talking about last week, and the referee thought she was hurt and called the match, and they did it as a precaution, but obviously she was okay. She was back here. So it just looks like the referee was concerned, and I guess she ended up being fine.
It was an unfortunate end to that match, but at the same time, it's something I'm really happy to see. You know, I'd rather somebody end a match early out of concern than end it late, because, you know, they're letting these wrestlers just, you know, continue hurt. So this was, I think, ultimately, like, something that I actually feel like helped this week. You know, because of the controversy stemming from Asuka versus Mickie, I feel like there's plenty of interest in a rematch.
So Vega gets thrown around by the hair. She comes back, she applies the octopus, then drives Mickey's head into the mat. She hit like this slow 619 kind of setup to tie up Mickie in the rope. Mickie comes back with an enziguri and then goes for this step-up knee that someone sent me this in slow motion. I did not need to see it in slow motion because in actual motion, this thing missed by a mile. Then there was a seated senton off the top by Mickie. She goes for the Mick DT. It was stopped. I felt like the timing of this was just, between the two, it was just so off. It just seemed like two different speeds we were going at. It ended with Vega catching her with a backstabber, which I guess is her finish. She wins in 4:13 to earn the title shot against Asuka, which will be on the kickoff on Sunday. I did not think this was a great match.
No, there's quite a bit of sloppiness in it, unfortunately. And this is not, like, I wouldn't say it was all in Zelina either. You know, it was, a lot of the kicks looked off, unfortunately. But, you know, this is Asuka going through the roster right now. Zelina's getting her chance on a pay-per-view match, or at least on a kickoff match. Unfortunately, it's another match at this Clash of Champions show, on the Raw side at least, that has absolutely zero heat attached to it. A contender that nobody really buys, really just created days before from out of nowhere.
The Hurt Business are attacking the faceless, nameless Retribution members in the back. So they've already laid out most of the group. And then we go to what I wanted to say was maybe the stupidest segment of the year. It might not have even been the dumbest segment of the night, depending on your attitude towards it. Akira Tozawa is with a masked...
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the Bianca Belair video. I'm like, you didn't like that?
I skipped the Bianca Belair video. Was this just a commercial?
It was just a little video, I guess, explaining, you know, what the ESTs are, and we started with strong guest on this one. So I imagine this will be a series. And of course, like Bianca Belair, she works out with like full makeup, full gear, with all that stuff in her hair. It didn't say a whole lot, but it's a start. It's better than nothing. I definitely feel like they're probably 5 months late with it. This would have been something that would have been nice to have even before she debuted, or if not, right after her debut. But the fact that they're actually starting right now, I would have to hope that after the draft is when she might actually get her real push.
Earlier today, Tozawa is with this masked referee on the beach, and they run into the water. R-Truth is also at the beach, and he gets spotted by Tozawa. So Tozawa and this referee hide underwater. Truth then spots a shark fin and drops the title and runs away. He's also with little Jimmy, by the way. We cut to 20 minutes later, and R-Truth is telling little Jimmy, because he's left the title in the water, I need to get my baby back. I need to get my baby back. And there was no Chili's sponsorship for this. He spots the shark again, rescues little Jimmy, but then we got like the scene out of Jaws with Alex Kittner, where you just see like the floating device he was on come up all torn to shreds from the shark attack. We see the ninja outfit, and R-Truth concludes that Tozawa got devoured and never to play with sharks. So Akira Tozawa is dead.
Or the referee.
Could be the referee as well. Yeah. Maybe Tozawa made it.
This was just absolutely terrible.
How is this even on the air?
So this was supposed to be a real shark, eh?
Like, were you not expecting that, okay, it's...
I mean,
like,
the water was like...
The referee was like the hidden shark, or it was someone under disguise to trick R-Truth. No, they played it up like this was an actual shark. Like, there was no reveal or punchline to this other than someone was eaten by the shark. It was like, what is going on?
The water looked like 3 feet deep here. I couldn't believe this. I mean, these 24/7 segments have always been terrible. All of them have been bad. Maybe outside of a couple Drake Maverick ones, maybe the wedding was fine. The rest of them have been god awful. And ever since ever since Drake Maverick has left, pretty much, these have all just like been in a creative level of just like, shit. And this was like one of the most kind of free form, I don't care, let's just go out and figure out some sort of story idea, types of segments that they've ever done. It was awful. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
MVP comes out with Cedric Alexander. He says that Retribution are going to have a 6-man tag tonight. You may be the judge and jury, but the Hurt Business are the executioners. Alexander tells Apollo, I don't care about you or your kids. So Alexander comes out with Ricochet. They don't care why he turned. We're just moving on from that reasoning. He says he has not forgotten about the United States title and announces he's facing Bobby Lashley on Sunday. So a lesson to be learned for challengers out there. Don't wait. Just announce that you're facing this person on Sunday.
This was a title shot. I mean, what is this? A rematch, I guess?
Yes.
But I thought rematches weren't a thing anymore. What has Apollo Crews done since then to earn this shot?
Well, he's maybe he's secretly working with Retribution. He's got one of those contracts where he can do anything he wants, anytime he wants.
Honestly, like, this is when it was weird last week, but it's especially weird this week because clearly the Hurt Business are being portrayed as the top baby faces of this show. And when they come out here and they're cutting these promos on poor Apollo Crews, who he wasn't out here fighting the bad guys. He was not heroic. He did not, whether or not he was getting paid. You have Apollo Crews basically, at this point, trying to antagonize one of the top baby faces on the show. It really hurts Apollo Crews, and it certainly hurts Ricochet.
Crews we had Cedric Alexander against Apollo Crews. We had Crews power up on him with a splash, Samoan drop for a 2 count, then goes to the floor, lands on his feet from the moonsault. Then Alexander lands a suicide dive, gets into Ricochet's face, and based on this face-to-face interaction, this distracted him to such a degree that he stepped into the ring and was cradled by Crews for the win in 8 minutes. So Crews wins going into his U.S. title shot, which was an outcome that I couldn't have necessarily predicted at the beginning of this.
The match was pretty decent, but you watch this, but and I couldn't really help but feel that like the importance of this entire program between Apollo and Lashley or Cedric, the whole thing has really been greatly diminished with just, it's been swallowed whole by this Retribution thing.
It got Akira Tozawa.
Exactly, yes. So I would have actually said, coming off of Payback, even with Lashley beating Apollo Crews. There was more emphasis on Apollo Crews after Payback as a principal player on the show. In the week since, I mean, Crews has just fallen so far into the background, whether it be, to the Cedric Alexander stuff or to the Retribution stuff, that coming into this Clash of Champions pay-per-view, he just does not seem like a contender whatsoever. I don't see any chance of a title change. Lashley, especially being the star of the Hurt Business, he's having a bigger role on the show, and unfortunately, Apollo Crews it seems like he's kind of getting left behind.
And then they beat the shit out of Cedric Alexander afterwards, and he was laid out and left for dead from the Hurt Lock.
Mm-hmm.
So, exciting stuff. Did you know, Way, the Thunderdome has 17 million pixels, over 3,000 LED panels? What about the BTUs of flames? You don't want to know that number? Or the HDX lasers? How many watts they have? 750,000, by the way. Raw Underground, Dolph Ziggler versus Arturo Ruas. The Battle of the Jeans.
Were they wearing jeans?
They were both wearing jeans. Ruas defends the single leg, knees Ziggler in the body, slams him down. Dolph Ziggler is like a guy that, he has a wrestling background, but I get the sense he very much tailors it to be like the over-the-top WWE style of what you'd expect to think of what fighting is. It's not exactly, we're not going high on technique here, but I thought that these two, they worked this Raw Underground format to have like a competitive 2-3 minutes here, which is all you can ask for.
I actually enjoyed the hell out of this. I really like Arturo Ruas' style. He looked fantastic here, as did Dolph Ziggler. Anytime they put him in this capacity where he's allowed to just wrestle and have, a believably
wrestle and fishhook.
Wrestle and fishhook, yes, that too. I enjoy these. I just wish that the ramifications were respected at all. There are no records. Guys go from being showcased as winners one week to being completely squashed by Braun Strowman the other week. So there's really still, months into this thing, a complete lack of linear progression for any of the people that appear on this show. I guess the exception being Dabba-Kato, who was portrayed as a big star and then subsequently was fed to Braun Strowman. So, but I don't expect the same, unfortunately, for Ruas and Ziggler.
Wait, that's preposterous. He wasn't literally fed to another individual. I mean, that would be crazy.
That's Tozawa, right?
The stupidest that was the stupidest thing of the night, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it was. We knew it was over because much like Mike Goldberg had his catchphrase to end a big fight, Shane McMahon yelled, "Ooh, that was sick!" as Arturo Ruas taps to the rear naked choke.
Mm-hmm.
Braun starts yelling at Shane. He doesn't want to be interviewed. So we got Brianna Brandy, who's been was signed about a year ago. He is not impressed with Dabba-Kato and hopes he has dental insurance because he's sending them to their mommies and says Shane can get some too.
So this Brianna Brandy was just suddenly called up in the middle of this thing.
She was more so like a co-host here with Shane.
They had points. A lower third ready and everything.
Yep.
So she just suddenly became a new co-host mid-sentence here.
Seth Rollins is out. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Last week on WWE.com, they posted photos of the Mysterio family, and this set a light bulb off for Seth Rollins. He shows a family photo and tells everyone to look at Rey and then look at Dominic. And you know exactly where this is going. He's had some people do some digging. He went to Ancestry.com, and he has gotten the results of an investigation, which I think this guy got the results of a DNA test faster than you got your COVID results.
Well, I should have tested with Ancestry.com then.
I mean, Seth does have that in because didn't he find a sibling of his that he did not know?
Yeah, I think I remember something like that. Yeah.
He did find one, so maybe he's got a connection there. He first invites the Mysterios to come out to hear this, and they can trust him. So all four come out. Rey is tired of all these mind games and where this angle's going. He says the plan is to give him a beating just like they did Murphy. But Rollins says that he is inspired by the family fighting together. He has the results of a DNA test and says, I know this has been done before, but technology has advanced a lot since 2005. And he asks if Rey is really Dominic's father. And Rey speaks for the entire audience as he groans. Rollins reads the results and says Rey is not the father. Rey tells him not to run his family's name through the mud. Seth says, you know what? Maybe my guys got this screwed up. Maybe it's Aaliyah who is not your daughter. She laughs this off. And Rollins has evidence. What is this evidence, you say, that determines Aaliyah could be parentless here in this segment? That she doesn't know her parents? She came to the ring last week and she checked on Murphy. Let me tell you, if you ever have a conundrum, a problem, Detective Rollins is not going to be your first point of contact. This is his evidence. Rey defends this. He actually is going to counterpoint this bullshit evidence from Seth by saying she was raised to be caring and compassionate. She's only 19. She's naive. She doesn't know about our world. And Aaliyah is pissed and storms to the back. So does Angie. Guess Aaliyah's going to have to dust herself off and try again because this did not go well for the Mysterio family.
Excellent.
Sorry. Dominic just stares at Seth. He's the last one to leave. Rollins is left in the ring. I didn't mean to drive a wedge. Even a family like the Mysterios, I guess, can let something like that happen. And he looks into the camera. It's probably happened to your families as well. I'm sorry. And he goes to the floor and then gives a smirk. What this guy needs to do is give a call to his blood brother, Joe. He's got to call up cousin Joe and say, dude, you are a way better actor than me. How have you gotten this heel character over? And I've been struggling for all these months. I thought this segment was completely stupid.
Oh my God.
But this is also the kind of storyline that also typically does well. So I don't know what to expect from this, but here's our latest chapter. And I was done at this point, Way. This was our hour 3 of Raw, and I didn't know if I was going to make it through another hour of this.
This is my favorite part of the show. I laughed uncontrollably throughout this entire thing. Anytime you have wrestlers trying really hard to act in this overly dramatic soap opera, who's your dad type of storyline, this to me reached like some of the levels of like my favorite unintentionally comedic moments of professional wrestling. I could not stop laughing. It was great.
Everyone always asks, if you wanted to sell somebody on wrestling, what match would you show them? I'd be like, I'm not recruiting anybody to watch wrestling. You know what I'm going to show them? I am going to show them this segment. Be like, if you can watch this and find anything, then maybe this is something you want to dedicate 3 hours of your Monday nights to.
I mean, this has a place on Adult Swim. It's got a place on any sort of like, you know, terrible B-movie time slot on your local cable channel. It's that great.
Well, listen, to be fair to Seth, like we talked about like a few weeks ago, he seemed to have really hit on like an element of the character that he had not prior that to me was the most success he has had with this character. You're going into this, and as ridiculous as this story is, I mean, we do have the precedent of the first time they did this with the Dominic and Rey, and that thing was an enormous success on SmackDown. It was like one of the best drawing angles SmackDown had in its history. But you had a guy in Eddie that, again, you have to be an incredible presence to pull off this heel character. And I'm not convinced Seth is that guy.
Well, to be clear, I don't see them actually pursuing the kind of paternity testing too much. I saw this really just as a way of Seth, I don't know, introducing Aaliyah into the story by bringing her name up, using some sort of, the callback essentially to a paternity test angle. They're a lot of fun to entice people to come in here, but I feel like we're not going to continue like a tease of whether or not Aaliyah is actually Rey Mysterio's daughter, and really just more so Aaliyah now being upset at Rey Mysterio, which Seth Rollins created.
What did we have next? We had Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler against Natalya and Lana with the Riot Squad on commentary. And the Riot Squad says that they have never been stronger going into this match on Sunday. And Liv Morgan is asked about Baszler and Jax being on different pages, and Liv could barely answer this question when she was asked.
She had like a brain freeze or something. She was really bombing this like commentary job. And it's hard to completely blame her because like what experience would somebody like her who's completely come up within the WWE system, what experience would she have had improvising on TV? None.
In this setting, in this company, virtually none.
Absolutely none. Like her whole career has been based off of reading scripted promo, saying exactly what somebody else wants her to say. So she's put into this like environment where she has to talk for herself, and she had nothing to say.
Then we had the rest of this match. It was a goddamn minute. Baszler came in. Natalya was knocked off the apron. Gut wrench, knee strike, Kirifuda clutch. Lana taps in a minute 2. And then Baszler and Jax go back to arguing. And Liv and Ruby, their go-home line to send us into this pay-per-view. Look, they don't even want to touch each other. So then they go down to the floor and they're about to destroy the Riot Squad, who... Riot saves Liv, so instead Jax takes poor Lana again and puts her through the desk with a Samoan drop. Sunday, everybody. That we get the showdown for the tag titles.
So I take it that Nia and Shayna are baby faces, right? Shayna is a baby face. Can we agree on that?
Sure.
And I think Nia, by association, is a baby face as well.
But not baby faces to the level of Ruby and Liv.
Well, you could have fooled me because you had the Riot Squad retreating here as like the cowardly heels to this like threat of Nia and Shayna Baszler. In any case, it's another terribly built feud for a match with absolutely no heat going into this pay-per-view. Like up and down this card, especially on the Raw side of things, outside of their main events, they're all completely cold with like challengers that nobody can buy.
This is a very weak show on Sunday. I think that goes without saying. Drew is icing his jaw, which means Charlie, it's interview time. He will defend his title and beat the piss out of Randy on Sunday, and tonight he's going to pick a fight. The Mysterios are huddled in the back. Rey apologizes to Aaliyah. Aaliyah says, I can speak for myself. Not in this environment. She came here to support Dominic, and both you and Dominic have been hurt. It's too much for me. But then again, I'm just a naive girl, and walks off. Dude, this is like the best actress/actor of the family.
You being sarcastic or no?
Aaliyah? I think Aaliyah is actually very good.
I thought she was awful here. Oh. Like, she was great when she was young, okay? But, like, this was really bad. Like, this was like the Degrassi junior high level bad.
She's 19. She would be on Degrassi junior high.
Well, exactly. There you go. But, man, this was terrible. I'm so on board.
I thought Aaliyah was fine. Riddick Moss versus Eric on Raw Underground. There's a big takedown by Moss, then a hip toss from Eric. Both are just throwing wildly, and then Eric hits a German suplex. Moss gets up, drops him with a clean right hand, and finishes him with strikes.
Yeah, Moss celebrates like it's the biggest win of his life, but we just immediately move on. You know, even Shane's like, I'm sorry to move on, but here's the real main event.
Brianna Brandy interviewing Dabba-Kato. And then Shane has to take over the interview. Says, talk is cheap. Tonight you will see, but he will feel what Dabba-Kato is all about. now get out of my face. And he just roared and roared and roared.
I mean, Shane seems to like be running this Raw Underground thing just really on a complete whim, you know, without any real plan, without any real structure. Whoever wants to show up gets to be in a match. You know, I'm going to hire somebody to be a ringside, you know, interviewer, but then I'm just going to take the microphone away from her right afterwards. He's like a rich guy who just like is high running this whole thing.
Mandy Rose is coming to Raw, which Lawler says will be Mandy Night Raw.
It's pretty clever.
Asuka Peyton Royce with Billie Kay in Peyton Royce's corner. Asuka gets lifted up and then drops down. Asuka Lock gets countered with a roll-up. Peyton Royce hit a spin kick and then stops Royce on the turnbuckle, lands a spinning kick, and then mounts on top of Royce. It seemed like they were trying to set up for the Asuka Lock, but then she's on top of her. Didn't matter because then Zelina Vega jumped in and attacked Asuka for the DQ in 2:25. Just done with these finishes.
It's the most generic WWE finish that we have. And it's a very generic WWE title program that's coming up on Sunday.
Aaliyah's backstage crying. Murphy approaches and apologizes. He says it's gotten out of hand, and he leaves. And Aaliyah said nothing here.
She was trying to act, I guess, responsive and receptive to Murphy.
Then the big fight. Braun Strowman, Dabba-Kato, Raw Underground, the Battle of the Behemoths. Strowman gets his back and tries to get his hooks in. It's like we took two big heavyweights and we decided to do shitty technical fighting to the point that they go to the floor and Shane is saying, man, think of how tired they must be, which is not something that it would be, that's not a positive that you're promoting. Look how gassed these guys got in 60 seconds. He drops Dabba-Kato with one big shot and then pounces him for the stoppage. I would be a hypocrite to complain about Dabba-Kato getting fed here, that at least you built up this big thing with these monsters and you had a decisive winner. And on this show, I was not going to complain about this, but it did very much feel like Dabba-Kato was the flavor of the week, and that week has passed.
Well, I'm at least happy to see like this Raw Underground add up and amount to something positive for somebody on this roster. Dabba-Kato could have just, you know, occasionally just been lingering in the back there, beating some people up. But in the end, it seemed like this was a pretty interesting way of rehabbing Braun Strowman after the title loss to The Fiend. I wouldn't mind seeing them continue to rebrand him as like a Raw Underground, you know, unbeatable champion. Dabba-Kato, I don't know if this is like a proper call up or not. I don't know if I don't know. I really don't know how far along he is, but I think perhaps more.
We'll see. If we don't see him in Raw Underground again, then I think that tells the tale.
Yeah.
Because this kind of almost felt like a blow off to the Dabba-Kato character, who was, I mean, that first week of Raw Underground, this whole concept felt to be built around him, and that's definitely changed.
Yeah. With a guy like that, I mean, I really think you have to take your time because, you know, few bad appearances. If he's not ready in ring for a proper match, like you can really expose him.
And then the words that we will always remember from Mike Rome. Introducing Slapjack, T-Bar, and Retribution. Sorry, Slapjack, T-Bar, and Mace. Retribution.
Their entrance is them entering through the crowd with a shaky cam. They made the shaky cam a part of their entrance.
Yeah, well, they're scared.
Yeah, of course, yeah. These names, I mean, you couldn't come up with names to make these dudes sound any less intimidating. And they're absolutely like, they are like quintessential Vince McMahon names. You know, you could tell they're the same guy who came up with Mace and the Mutilator.
Yeah. Are they going to be like WWE spelt out names? Like we'll get Slapjack, where it's like Jakk, T-Bar with 2 R's, and then Mace, it'll be like a capital C in the middle of that word.
It should really be a $$E.
It really should. I mean, they're kind of like their mission statement is more money, more problems.
Yeah.
What do you think were the names that didn't make the cut?
Mousepad.
I've got some Mousepad?
Yeah.
Guys, I got them. We got
Lawnmower.
Bebop and Rocksteady. I came up with them last night. These are groundbreaking names.
Yeah, I don't know. What's another Kendo? Save that.
Dabba-Kato.
Maybe table. Chair. Fuck, what is a T-bar?
It's the thing you don't try if you're nursing a muscle injury in the gym.
What?
You see, you wait to work on the T-bar until you're at full strength.
Oh, okay. T-bar is an actual like weight training thing, right?
No, I don't think it is.
It is. I'm googling T-bar right now.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
Well,
why would a man name himself after that if you're supposed to be a terrorist?
What is Mia Yim gonna be like? Like because they're like anti
Peloton. No, we got Peloton. We've got Bowflex coming up.
Mia Yimalist.
What?
Like a minimalist, but a Mia Yimalist. I
don't know about that one. T-bar. I mean, I imagine T-bar probably means something else too, right? But I don't know. Like all the results coming up are like like a landmine type of thing.
Oh, I hope we have
landmine,
a redo.
There's one.
How great would it be if like tomorrow it surfaces like there's a porn star with one of these names and they've got to change them next week?
Yeah, I'm not doing that Google search right now. Maybe later. I think you're looking for T-Bag.
Maybe that was the one that got turned down.
Yeah.
Hey, I got one.
Well, he still needs a name for a finisher.
Oh God. Yeah, give him the Vader bomb or the bonsai drop. It'd be the T-Bag. They took on Seti, B-Lash, and Shelt Ben. The best exchange was Tom Phillips saying, "This is Slapjack," and Lawler responds, "Slapjack," and he just started laughing. Nothing says menacing group that is threatening a takeover than Jerry Lawler laughing these guys off at their ridiculous names. And this is someone who helped create the Kamala character.
I'm sorry to harp on these names for as long as we are, but who uses a slapjack these days? Like a slapjack is very much like a 1940s like Dick Tracy type of weapon, isn't it? Like, is a slapjack even used at all? Like, much less by, like a supposed Antifa group? Like, have you ever seen a slapjack in real life?
Stevie Ray used to use one.
Yeah, that would be the only time. That's how I know what it's called. But, in real life?
Would you love to just sit down for 15 minutes with Vince McMahon and just watch the news that night? And after 15 minutes, get his interpretation of what he has just seen?
I wouldn't want that.
I definitely would. I think that would be really insightful.
Mace. I like it. Mace. What else?
He's still, we've still got more to name. We've got to name Mercedes. We've got to name Yim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we still got more names. It's these are pretty terrible, but they could lower the bar, the T-bar. I have nothing to say about this match. They got the advantage on Alexander, then they got the advantage on Shelton Benjamin.
They're wrestling this match, I think, as complete baby faces.
Who?
The Hurt Business.
Oh, the Hurt Business. Yes, absolutely. And going 50-50 with our new threatening group that have to resort to an eye poke when Lashley applies the Hurt Lock and T-Bar pokes him in the eye for the goddamn DQ in 6 minutes and 17 seconds.
No, that's the other thing, too. It's in every tag team wrestling match ever, you've had guys touch somebody if they're not legal.
Wait, we watched Dolph Ziggler fishhook a man 45 minutes ago.
Well, that's the underground, okay? Anything goes there. But, I understand.
They signed contracts that they literally told me all night they can do whatever they want. What does that mean? Up until an eye poke? That's the line too far.
Did we even get an eye poke here? That's what it was?
That's what it was. He poked him in the eye with the hurt lock on. These guys attacked this arena, dude, with fucking chainsaws. They hired these guys, and the match was thrown out with an eye poke.
I guess the ref didn't see it.
The first match, you couldn't find 3 geeks for these guys to run roughshod on. Like, is it that hard to book the invading group?
John, you couldn't fuck this thing up more if you tried. Like, you'd have a better chance going 0 for 5 on a G1 card than what they did here. Everything about this was wrong. They're terrible names. The Hurt Business playing baby faces despite being heels on the other part of the show. A terrible finish. Like, everything about this was just epically bad.
Worst gimmick of the year, Retribution, by a landslide after tonight's show. Worst Raw of the year. At the end of this, the Retribution members swarm the ring. The cameras are going into shock. Then Drew McIntyre runs out with the rest of the locker room. The rest of the locker room that had no desire to fend off these people, save for the Hurt Business, until tonight. Everyone fights. Drew is left in the ring. He eats an RKO onto his injured jaw. The end of this show, thankfully.
It's like, what I don't get is, like, we have several templates of how to properly do invasions. I mean, they've done plenty of invasion angles. I mean, obviously to varying degrees of success, but, like, invasion angles have been done for like 20, 30 years at this point. How was this one handled so badly?
This was a bad show. This is a very, very bad episode of Raw. I don't mean to harp on it, but I just thought this was a brutal show that I cannot tell you how little my interest is in Clash of Champions on Sunday. And this Retribution angle is just awful. It is so terribly executed.
It's like SmackDown has several good things on it. The Roman story with Jey Uso, I think, has been very well told. Sasha and Bayley is a good storyline, although you're not going to see any sort of iteration or chapter of it at Clash of Champions. There are good things on the show, even for the most part, like Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. I'm still enjoying that, but then, like, it's just like, it's been overgrown the rest of these 3 hours with just like terrible, like, weeds. Like the worst, shittiest, ugliest weeds possible. And it came in the form of this Retribution angle. It came in the form of all these tag teams that are meant to be breaking up, but they're continuing for one more shot. Whatever's going on with Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, and these kind of lame duck challengers. I mean, I think Orton and Drew is still in very good shape, but, like, it's been a murky month, like, with that story. Now that it's all kind of done, we're heading into the pay-per-view. But those two are still seen as, I would say, like, big deals. Now, like, it could be way better, and I think what they're doing with Keith Lee could be way better. But I wouldn't say, like, they've completely lost it. I can't say the same for, like, the Iconics. I don't know what's going on there. The women's division, like, I mean, it's fine. Like, it's just Asuka beating a bunch of people. But this draft really can't come soon enough, like, for them to reset everything. Oh, of course, in your favorite ninja thing.
Oh, God, yeah, a man got eaten by a shark tonight. Let's not bury the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to feedback. I give this show a 1. 2.63. Not that far off from what the forum thought about tonight's show. Paul from New Jersey. This Retribution stuff is just boring. It's just lazy hyperbole. Everyone excited for the Street Profits against Garza and Andrade again? Me neither. At least Vince McMahon remembered that Peyton Royce and Bianca Belair exist. Who could have called Randy Orton interfering in the McIntyre-Lee match? Lee has been in 5 matches on the main roster that have concluded in a no contest. Tapped out after the Peyton Asuka non-match nonsense. At least you guys get paid to watch this nonsense. I have no excuse. Way's Cowboys are 2-0, currently undefeated.
All right, we got a note from Vaughn who says, where do I even start with the show? 60 camera cuts in the less than 2-minute Raw Underground fight between Ruas and Ziggler. I think I'm still dizzy from that. I have no idea why they're doing Garza and Andrade versus the Street Profits again when the Profits are 7-0-1 in their 8 tag matches since March.
That's insane.
Which seems like way too many for these two teams. Slapjack, T-Bar, and Mace are 3 of the worst wrestling names I've ever heard. Retribution is worse than Dark Order ever was pre-Brody. I shudder to think what names Mia and Mercedes will end up getting.
It's unfortunate. I mean, none of these 3 are really going to even want to use these names on Twitch. So maybe they outsmarted them. Jesse from Montreal. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Seth Rollins abandoned his own partner, which gave a win to Garza and Andrade. Badia, Retribution made us all frown. Badia, Raw is much worse than SmackDown. Badia, I'll watch Dallas versus Tampa Bay. I don't know what this was done in the style of, but thank you, Jesse.
It's Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay.
I like yours better, personally. We got a Nick from Lansing who says, Raw somehow feels put together at the last minute and overproduced at the same time. The 24/7 belt is beyond unfunny now, even with R-Truth trying his hardest. Retribution makes no sense at this point. They refused WWE's money, but Mercedes was on NXT last week. The names are rightfully getting roasted, and the whole angle feels like it's dying a slow death.
I disagree with the word slow. We go next to Ventak. I tried watching Raw today for the first time in 6 months. Well, you lost today. This show was the absolute drizzling shits. I couldn't care for anybody on this show. Nobody feels important, protected, motivated, or compelling. See you in 6 months.
I can't imagine stepping into this, for the first time in 6 months and just experiencing this. Cause I almost feel like it's worse if you have been following the stories up until this point. So that Keith Lee and Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre have already faced each other, and that Keith Lee has had no contests in 5 of his several matches that he's had. If you know that Andrade and Angel Garza have faced the Street Profits 6 or 7 times prior to this, it's way worse if you've actually been watching the show, I think, than if you were just stepping in.
The worst or the best, depending on what you get your enjoyment out of, is that what this show truly was not the go-home show for Clash of Champions. It's the go-home show for being the Elite next Monday.
Oh, yeah. I know, the Dark Order members already have names. They should suggest name changes.
They should come up with, a list of the stupidest goddamn names next week for John Silver to pitch to Brody Lee.
Do it. Cash from Ajax says, we live in a time where there's so much quality television at our fingertips. Why anyone would want to sit through this garbage is beyond me. I get that some people don't mind shutting off their brain for a couple of hours in the evening, but this show is asking people to shut off their brain, close their eyes, and plug their ears to enjoy the show.
That's really hard.
There's so many quality wrestlers who are in their peak that are just drowning in this cesspool. Do you guys have an update on the contract statuses of Ricochet, Kevin Owens, and Andrade? These guys would kill it in AEW.
I mean, Ricochet joined in 2018, so I don't know the length of his. Owens, his last deal, he signed a 5-year deal in 2018, so he's there years. He's got nothing coming up anytime soon, and I don't know Andrade. Brian from New York.
They'll pull up a huge truckload of cash whenever it's time. Maybe they'll even start booking them properly when it's close to them, coming up, having to re-sign. They don't want to lose anybody, but man, they try hard with angles like these.
Brian from New York. That was something of a main event. Looking forward to Retribution eventually running through all the stables and teams until there's only one left standing, a returning Truth Commission. Slapjack, T-Bar, and Mace versus Kurgan, Recon, Sniper, and Tank. The ultimate showdown. In all seriousness, this show has just rotted my brain. At least they were nice enough to Dijak, Madden, and Thorne to hide their faces and names so they can get a second chance without this gimmick down the line. Something I liked about Raw, they seem to have done an about face in regards to keeping the Iconics apart. Okay? In a division that is sorely lacking contenders for Asuka, starting Peyton Royce's singles run from scratch didn't make a ton of sense, and she'll be far stronger as a heel with a second than without one. Hopefully the vignette tonight was the start of something tangible for Bianca Belair. Once the Zelina Vega program is over, there isn't really any good reason to keep Bianca out of the title picture. Might as well position her at the top while the rest of the division is rebuilding. Well, that is some awful optimism on your part, Brian, but we will see. I will counter all of that with 2 words, Mustafa Ali. But we'll see.
Like in hindsight, I mean, wouldn't it have made a whole lot more sense if you had waited for the Iconics to challenge for the titles at Clash of Champions, lose them, and then break up?
That would have required, I guess, more long-term thinking than went into this one. And I think that this is ultimately a system that, like, we talk about the, plans that change because of, ideas that might be pitched that have long-term payoffs and stuff that just get scrapped at the last minute once they reach the top. But I feel we're seeing stuff that is not even thought of a week in advance. That is I have no idea what Raw will look like next week. I hazard to guess if they would even have a strong idea. And if they do, what confidence level that the show that they might have in mind is going to be the show that we see on Monday. This just feels like it is. Look how much Retribution shit, throw out the quality portion. This is their number one angle on Raw. This is their biggest story they're pushing and have been for 6 weeks. And look how much shit they blew through tonight that they gave out without any kind of build towards any of it. It was just all for tonight, all to throw at the wall tonight. You had within the body of the show to build to our number one angle, and these characters having their contracts are already, we've established now, they're just part of the roster like anybody else. We're going to give away their first match.
Not their first conclusive ending to a match, though. They can't skip out on that.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Everyone at the end was like, oh, man, I didn't get a clean finish. I can't wait now to next week. Maybe we'll get a clean finish next week.
I got to look up how many actual finishes we actually had on this show.
Dude, let's go over them, okay? We had Garza and Andrade win the tag thing after Rollins walked out on Murphy. We can give him that one.
Fine.
Drew beats Keith by DQ when Randy runs in.
So DQ, 1.
Zelina pins Mickie James. That was clean.
Okay.
Apollo beats Cedric. So they got that one.
Mm-hmm.
We got Shane and Nia over Natalya and Lana.
That was a squash.
And then we had Asuka DQ'd against Peyton, or Asuka won by DQ against Peyton. And then the main event, Retribution losing by DQ. Losing technically in their first match to Lashley, Alexander, and Benjamin.
3 out of 7. One of those was Seth Rollins walking out. So I'm going to say 3.5. 50% of these matches were fucked up, non-finishes or something else. And that's just, I think, a bad use of 3 hours.
Again, it's the point I'm going to keep looking at is the fact that even when you have a big match to promote, when you have diminished your faith that you're getting any kind of payoff to it, it almost negates whatever star power you're creating because there is no faith that you can build a show. You could announce, what's the biggest match you could announce next week?
The biggest match, John Cena and Roman Reigns. Okay.
And do you think that they would beat either of those guys clean on Raw next week?
No, of course not.
So that's a bigger problem that I think, that's an extreme example of 2 big names that you could promote. But I even look at this ambulance match. How do they get out of this ambulance match? Do you think you're getting a clean cut finish, or are we getting Retribution tipping the ambulance over? There's no ambulance to take the loser out on.
There's going to be some Retribution involvement, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know.
That was Raw. Any closing thoughts?
No. It's one of those shows where it makes me end up feeling really weird. I don't know. I'm a little sick.
You're sick? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm good. I got it all out of my system tonight. Listen, it was a really bad episode of Raw. I really hope they come back on Sunday. I hope this is a kick-ass pay-per-view on Sunday. I hope that everyone has a phenomenal night. I hope we get no bullshit finishes. I would love that. Believe me, I would.
The thing is like when they're just simply left to like having matches, and if we get conclusive endings, like they do often deliver. Payback nobody was really looking forward to, and that ended up being one of the better shows that they've done this entire year. So I don't discount like that bell to bell. These could be good, but man, skip all the TV.
Well, folks, we will be back on Tuesday. Don't skip our shows. We've got Ask Away coming up Tuesday night. The Mailbag Show, we'll be going through all of those. You can get in your last-minute questions, forum.postwrestling.com in the Ask Away thread. Submit those by Tuesday afternoon, and then we will, Tuesday morning, you should have them in by. And then Wednesday, we'll be back with Rewinded Dynamite. I guess, are you going to watch this late-night Dynamite?
Yes, I am, yeah. We'll probably talk about it on Wednesday.
We'll go through it real quick. Yeah. We'll see if there's anything notable coming out of it. That is all for us. Thank you for listening, everybody, and have a great day. And don't forget that on Monday, September 21st, Akira Tozawa was eaten by a goddamn shark